In this video, we'll cover how to export your animation from TVPaint. As you can see here with the play button, we have the animation playing. This would be his idle, standing still, breathing animation. It's a little fuzzy. That's just a preview due to hardware and how fast your computer can basically display it. They just pixelate it so it plays better. But you can see that it's got the moving animation. When you press stop, this is the one you're going to get the clarity. Review on how I did this. If I turn off all the other layers, I started out with, originally I started out with just a rough sketch, kind of like the shape that I wanted them. And then I refined it a little more. So let's turn that one off so you can see the difference. He's a little more proportion drawn, and I got him to animate like that. Just kind of rough figure sketch, circle for the head and rough body and circle for the hips. Once I was happy with that, I then penciled on or drew on all the armor. So right over top the other layer. And if I turn off the layer underneath, we start to get the finished drawing where he's got all his armor on there. And then once that was done, I then went through and put the clean lines on top. So let's say I turn this one off. Oops, that one's overlay. Set that back to color. Alright, so now I drew the pixel for pixel lines. And if we press play now, so I didn't start out with pixels, I started out with the sketching and eventually worked my way. Once I was happy with the drawing, I just went through and traced it all in pixels to get the pixel look to it. And then I went through and put color to it. And so I colored in all of the areas so he has a color look, but I wanted to have a little more shading to it. So I added some shadows to it. And then I added some highlights for tinting on the areas. And then to get rid of the dark black outline that was around him, I changed the color to an overlay, and that kind of blended out all the colors so I didn't have the dark black lines. Usually to make it look more 3D, I guess, more realistic, you just blend out the colors. So it's a darker color around it, but not quite a black color around everything. And so that got to the final result here. And if I put, let's say, a background back there just to give an idea of how he would look, you can see how he looks here. So, but I don't want to export the background, so I'm going to turn that one off. And again, some of these buttons will look a little different. I'm running TVPaint 10, the school has 9. It's going to be slightly different, but more or less the same way this works. And you basically just draw everything. If you wanted to draw a new image, you can grab this little box down here and that slides your timeline around. The top box up here will slide just the image around. Backspace will clear it out and allow you to draw something else. So when you're ready to export, you go File, Export to, right here with the X next to it, Export to. And you can see here that it has the character. It has all the frames listed. We're going to export the PNG. There's a lot of other settings, and this menu will look a little different on TVPaint 9, but format should be PNG. For mode, you want to set this to 32-bit. This way you get your transparency. And everything else should stay the same. You can pick on where you want to save it at, which for me is up here, but 9.0 is somewhere down here. But it's set to save to my desktop. So once that's set, I'm going to press export. Make sure the background is unchecked. You don't want the background checked. This way it exports without a background. Press export, and this will give us a whole lot of pictures on the desktop. So if I grab the desktop, we can see that there's a whole bunch of frames that we have. We can go through and run through each one of these and play forward and get all of them. Let's close out that, and let's go to Game Maker. This one. Alright, and we're going to go to New Sprite. And I'm going to call this Idle Animation. And we're going to go to Edit Sprite, and I'm going to go File, Create from File, from the desktop. And I'm going to look for all these images and start with this one, all the way down to the bottom. Hold Shift and select all of them. So I've selected every image from the beginning to the end, and I'm going to press Open. So I don't want to check any of the other boxes, just press Open. And it brings every image in with the transparency in the background. And if I do Preview, you can see that he's breathing, just like he was in the other program. And we'll press Confirm for that, and we now have a sprite. We want to go back and modify our collision masking. I forget exactly what the other ones were, but we want to go back and change that. It was 32, 64, 524. (32, 64, 5, 124) and rectangle. And so that puts them exactly in the same collision area. So again, we want to use all these same numbers for every sprite to make sure it works the same. So no matter how many sprites forward he's still breathing, it's still going to be the same matching one. And we don't need separate collision masks. That only works for precise, and we don't want to go with the precise. We want to keep the same square box. And so that sets him here, so he's ready to be dropped into the game. And so that covers how to export from TVPaint into Game Maker. You can also do the same thing if you drew it in Photoshop. You would just go to the same thing, Edit Sprite, from File, Create from File, and just grab your Photoshop images and drag it in there.